Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome to today's video. I'm Instigator92, and today we're going to go over my thoughts and feelings on Halo Campaign Evolved that I played last Friday. I did a marathon here on the channel, going through the whole campaign and the new missions. And little to say, there's a lot to unpack here. So we're going to go through this whole thing. There's going to be some minor spoilers, so just keep that in mind. Nothing major though. I have some gameplay in the background, nothing from really the prequels too much at least. So we should relatively be spoiler free, but just in case, there is going to be a little bit of something from the prequels. Okay, so first thing I kind of want to tackle here is the first thing that you're really going to notice with the game, and that's it's an Unreal Engine 5 game. So the game genuinely looks good, as most Unreal Engine 5 games do. And there are some maps where you're going to notice some of these changes more than others. Specifically, anything that has an outside environment looks really good and beautiful. Like the very first mission, Installation 04, where you have a chance to be outside. It's a really big noticeable difference from the original game. I mean, obviously technology's come a far way, but they did a pretty good job in showcasing the environment that it's supposed to be. The snow area on Assault in the control room, that biome looks very good. The swamp in 343 Guilty Spark is probably the biggest noticeable change and the best looking campaign mission, with the environmental storytelling that goes on in there as well. Definitely the biggest changes. I thought that one was really well done. They really captured the atmosphere for that mission. And the missions following 343 Guilty Spark looked really good too, showcasing flood biomass, especially being used in creative ways to kind of help change the layout of a couple missions, like 2 Betrayals, adding biomass that blocks paths that we used to use a lot in Halo CE. Now there's different paths that you have to go and take, and that kind of changes up the flow a bit. And speaking about changing the flow, maps like the library and 2 Betrayals, and even the keys in the Maw, all got some pretty nice upgrades. They got different layouts, especially the library, which is seeing the most changes. Now, it still plays very much like the library. Granted, there are some different rooms that you have to go through. You face some different enemies, but it is still pretty much the library. Albeit, I would say, in a much more annoying manner. I think I would rather play the original library over this new one. This one, you might not be waiting for a lot of doors to open up and just going through the same boring old halls left and right. But this new library just adds some extra monotony that I personally just do not really care for. So I think it's an okay upgrade. It changes it up, so it's not exactly the same thing, but I personally think I would prefer to play the original library instead of the new one on the next playthrough if I could. And I know they mentioned that they were going to make changes to 2 Betrayals. They kind of did. It's still Assault in the control room in reverse. And what really just kind of changes it is they added some flood biomass, blocked a couple caves, routes, and it just causes you to go and do things in a different manner than you otherwise would. And they changed how you take down the generators. Instead of jumping into the generator to overload it, now when you're in each of the rooms, there's 4 little, I guess you would call them like power boxes, and you destroy those, and then that takes the generator offline without EMPing your shields and making yourself susceptible to the incoming wave of enemies. And then the Maw, we finally get to see some more of the desert area outside of the cutscene. Inside there, especially on the Warthog run, you get to see a bunch of sand. They completely changed the Warthog run, albeit there is still aspects of it that are familiar, but there is definitely some new stuff there. I don't know if it's more enjoyable or less enjoyable. It definitely feels a lot easier to just kind of speed through, whereas the other one has a little bit of nuance to it. But overall, it's still the Warthog run for the most part. I would say it's roughly 65-70% the same Warthog run, give or take a couple spots that are really different to maybe explain some of that extra length and why there's a gap with a random bridge. with Full Hammer's death. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, they got rid of the camouflage flood in the armory when you go to load up with rockets to go break the shield cores. And that part of that area, too, is completely taken out. Basically, where the camouflage flood used to be, that's how you go now to access the engine room to destroy the cores. So that was a layout change, too. I know I mentioned keys. The ship interior received some changes, and you see a lot of that on Truth and Reconciliation. But there's a lot of flood biomass in the last couple of missions after 343. So the interior of Truth and Reconciliation is basically just loaded with flood biomass, and the ship is actually crashed in the canyon rather than just sitting above it damaged. So that helps explain the coolant leaking and some other things going on. One of the other things I want to touch on with this game, at least on the artistic side of things, they did not do a very good job with the Forerunner technology and representing that in-game, especially the architecture. The UNSC architecture, for the first time, 343 has done a really good job. Very simple, militaristic. Their Covenant designs on Truth and Reconciliation and keys, and anywhere else you see a lot of Covenant equipment, it looks really good. It feels Covenant. Maybe there's some little minor things that you could change, but overall, they look good. The Forerunner architecture, though, just looks like generic sci-fi slop. They need to change and go back to what was done with the original Halo trilogy. Now, Halo 3 did have some crazy looking designs, but they still had a very simplistic look in very many aspects. Same thing with Halo 2. Halo 2 took a couple things a step further. Still very simplistic look. You had the simple, smooth metal. It wasn't all these geometric patterns and everything. You had some stone-based architecture going on. 343 does not seem to understand Forerunner architecture. Who knows if they ever even will. This is definitely an area that they still need to improve upon, and maybe one day they'll get there, but I do not have high hopes. They have had multiple games now, and everything just looks a lot like Promethean technology from Halo 4. And on top of all this, they do not do a very good job at representing the scale of Halo in the initial cutscene, leaving the Pillar of Autumn. And a part of that is due to some of their design. They have all these big lights and circles, again, that modern sci-fi slop. And the ring just looks way smaller than the original Halo. Bungie did a good job with all the small lights and everything to convey how big it was. And on top of that, in that cutscene, for whatever reason, the Pillar of Autumn, as it flies by the escape pod, just looks extremely small compared to the big-ass warship that you just left. And this isn't the only instance. In the prequel missions, there's another UNSC ship that just looks small. The Covenant ship that you're on, that is supposed to be this huge-ass cruiser, when you're inside of it, it's giant. But when you're outside of it, it looks so small. No bigger than maybe, oh god, how do I even describe it? A small cargo ship nowadays. It does not look like this big, spacefaring ship. Definitely room to improve upon there. Weapons all looked pretty good for the most part. Granted, they're very much a lot of the stuff that we had in Halo Infinite. Some designs were good and okay. Other things I think could still be much more classic. I definitely would change the Needler to be a more classic Needler. I don't know why we have the ammo counter on the gun. The classic Needler never had that. The needles on top, that was your counter right there. As you shot the gun, the needles disappeared off the top. Once you reloaded it, they reappeared. So that is just one of those things that they do not seem to understand over at Halo Studios. And that's how not to have to hold a player's hands. They could gain all this information just from playing the game, exploring the world, and just really paying attention to what they're playing. If they don't notice all of this stuff on their own, and they can't realize that the needles are disappearing as the gun is shooting, and that they need to have some kind of ammo counter on there to tell them what they have, then there's just no hope for them. You're just stuck being a complete dumbass. What else do you want me to say about that? I grew up in an age where we had to gain a lot of this information and figure stuff out on our own. We weren't having our hands held all the time. And it seems like this younger generation, they just make games so easy, put all this extra information out there rather than giving the players something to figure out for themselves, find out, enjoy, and just be like, hey, this is really cool. Like, I might not have an ammo counter, but watching the crystals disappear as I shoot and then them re-going up, that's my counter. Like, that is super fucking neat. They'll never get to have that experience. They just get to see the ammo counter and the needles disappear at the same time. They're not going to look at the needles, they're going to look at the fucking counter. Yeah, so I guess it is what it is. Can't be changed now, although they should add a weapon model in for the classic Needler. I want to take a look at some of the weapon sound design. For the most part, the weapons sound fine or good in some respects. Like the assault rifle sounds like the CE assault rifle. The SMG sounds a lot like the Halo 2, Halo 3 SMG. I do think there's some room for improvements, especially with some of the Covenant weaponry. Like the plasma rifle, I feel could sound better. More like the classic version. I think the fuel rod gun could sound a lot better. But all in all, it's a passable attempt for this 25th anniversary remake with the sound design. It's not anything great. In some areas, it definitely feels like a downgrade. This is just what we have to live with, unfortunately. And it's not something I think to be praising them for. Definitely room for improvement. Especially with the battle rifle on the prequel missions. Like, that thing is atrocious. It literally sounds like the Halo 2 SMG. And on top of that, in the one cutscene where the Chief is shooting it, it sounds like the assault rifle from CE. And I'll show you here in this clip. I genuinely don't know if that works that way. Why does the battle rifle sound like the assault rifle? So as you can see here, they do not have consistency with their audio team when it comes to the battle rifle in any way, shape, or form. It just sounds weak, and they have two different audio files playing for this thing, depending on if you're in the cutscene or actually playing the missions. So let's just talk real quick here before we get into actual gameplay elements. Last couple things for the art side of things, character models. They're okay. They're very far from the classic that we all know and love. Everything is pretty much Halo Infinite models for characters, especially Covenant. We already touched on weapons. Wish they would have taken the time to remake those assets properly and not just reuse the Infinite stuff, or at least if they're going to reuse it, make some changes to make it feel more like CE, like put forth that effort. If Unreal Engine is supposed to be so easy to work with, I don't see why we couldn't have made some of these changes. They did a little bit with some of the green eye pieces, but I don't think they went far enough to really capture that colonial marine look from Aliens. We did get some new models though with the prequel missions. All of those were brand new, never before used or seen. So they did make some new models, but that effort could have been put towards what actually mattered, which was the campaign, the reason we bought the game. We didn't buy the game for the prequel missions. We bought it because it's the 25th anniversary remake of Combat Evolved, not the 25th anniversary remake of Operation Meteorite, which is the new story that they're telling in the prequel missions. And of all the character designs, they really fucked up Cortana. It is a very ugly design and a very woke design. Her face is literally that of a man. And you can't gaslight me and say that this isn't true. This is definitely some woke liberal shit where they can't have an attractive female character in the game. Now, she doesn't have to be like the most voluptuous character or most beautiful character ever made, but it could be a good looking female character. Instead, we get this basically kind of like a trans character in the game. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but this is shit they've been doing for years now in games, and that's exactly what they're doing with Cortana here. And they need to just put in a proper skin or something that you could somehow change how Cortana looks in your campaign, or I might have to look at some of the mods that people are making that actually change what she looks like. This shit has no place in gaming in general. They should just be making good games, good characters, good looking characters, and be done with it. If they want to have a woke game, you know what? Go make your own woke game. Don't put it into something that's already established because you think you can get away with it and it'll be overlooked. There's definitely going to be some people that overlook this and just say, oh, well, I don't care. You're the reason why this shit fucking continues. On top of that, I know we haven't touched on the whole prequel missions with the Operation Meteorite. The woke shit with the ODST female. I was not having any of that when I played through it. I couldn't fucking stand that ODST. She was just annoying as shit, the whole woke girl boss thing, and it was not working for me. I could not wait to just finish those missions and be done. They are not fun in any respect, especially on the story side of things. Now I'm going to hold off on the story bit. I do want to talk about gameplay design first, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the story for the campaign. Some of the dialogue and whatnot did change, and we will touch a little bit on Operation Meteorite. So one of the first things I wanted to touch on here as it pertains to some of the gameplay design, one of the biggest topics in the Halo community, sprint. Now as I was playing, I did not have sprint turned off. I played through the whole campaign with sprint on. I played using it, and I'll definitely say it breaks pacing. The game is perfectly playable without sprint. The pacing is very similar in that respect to Combat Evolved, because I had some moments where I wasn't sprinting, and then I had moments where I definitely was using it. And you just move so fast through the map when you are using sprint that a lot of the music and audio cues just zip by, and you're really not taking in a lot of the environmental storytelling. You miss a lot of that, especially like with some of the music cues that kind of get ready to cue things up. Like I kind of sprinted through some of the flood stuff, and it was pretty insane how much you actually missed by doing that. If I was just walking, I would get a lot of those audio cues from the music and some of the other stuff in the environment, and it just adds so much more to the experience. And on top of that, they did not do a good job at all for upscaling the environments for the sprint. The environments either stayed the same size or in some cases were smaller. So sprint being added in doesn't really have a purpose except to help people just kind of get through things quicker and not really enjoy and appreciate the game. If you're someone that really loves sprint, especially in Halo, I don't think you're much of a Halo fan. Halo is more than just going from mission to mission and sprinting through everything to get from point A to B. There's so much more going on, and 343, or Halo Studios, I kind of call them both, they don't understand any of this. They're just putting sprint in there because it's a part of modern shooter game design, and I wouldn't even say that there's very many new modern shooters that a lot of people are playing. Like if they're playing a game sprinting around right now, it's Call of Duty and Apex. Halo is not that type of game. It does not work well with sprint at all. A part of Halo is taking in that environmental storytelling, that sense of wonder and awe of where you're at on this alien world built by the Forerunners, who were human, by the way, and going through all these Covenant ships and UNSC ships, like really taking in and exploring everything visually. And if you're sprinting, you're not doing that. Also, that's a part of Halo's gameplay design, is you have vehicles to get you across these larger open expanses. Halo is one of those games that actually balances infantry and vehicle gameplay very well together, especially in mission structures for campaign and multiplayer. So when you have larger environments, your vehicles are how you're going to get around a lot quicker than on foot. That was always there. And I found myself a few times, instead of going and grabbing that Ghost, or even the Warthog a couple times, I was able to just ignore them and get to where I needed to go because I have a go fast button. This sprint is a noticeable increase in speed compared to what they did with Infinite. So outside of sprint, the other thing with movement that I kind of noticed is that there is a little bit of strafe inertia there. Not a whole lot, but I kind of felt a little something there. It should be a little bit more to really match the classic Halo experience, rather, because it still feels somewhat instantaneous. It's not really quite the dance that it used to be. And a lot of these things make fighting with some of the AI really weird. because you have this extra access to speed and everything's just snappier and quicker, the Covenant aren't quite as dangerous. Especially when you take into fact that there is regenerative health. It's so easy to just run in, do a couple melees on an enemy, just get in and out of fights so quick, recover shields, go back and forth. There is no set pacing to gameplay. This plays a lot more like a Call of Duty campaign, where you can just kind of run through stuff, run at stuff, and get through it. And that just isn't what Halo is. There was always a dance, there was always a little bit more going on, and this game is kind of missing a lot of that soul. And part of that soul that's missing is the AI design. The AI is rather dumb in this game, especially compared to Combat Evolved, the game that came out 25 years ago. A lot of the times they will stop and stand there and just kind of stare at you, or they will walk towards you, stop, shoot at you a little bit, walk towards you, stop, or stop just before they get to you, especially like the elites with the energy sword. Like sometimes it was like they couldn't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. And heaven forbid they actually tried to flank around or get to you like the original AI used to do. Like they're just very wonky to fight. They're like the elites and the Covenant from Halo Reach. Not very fun. They just kind of stand there and shoot at you like turrets for the most part. Do some minimal moving around. And that's about it. And being able to sprint and move around that makes them very trivial to deal with. Especially the Flood. Like the Flood AI doesn't really feel like the Flood. They kind of walk towards you half the time. They don't run. And they don't feel like their namesake, where they're just overwhelming you like this huge flood or mass of enemies. And I would say that that's a flaw of having sprint as some of the game design, because you have to develop AI around that, and if a player is constantly running and sprinting around, AI has to be able to sit there and take the time to kind of guess what the player is doing and try to react to that. So it just makes them slower with decision making. I think that's why a lot of the enemies, starting with Halo Reach, going forward even, are just not very fun to fight. They're either very simple, they stand still like a turret, or they just run straight at you. They don't actually really react to how you're moving in real time in the environment, because there's that speed increase, so the design philosophy has to change a little bit. You have to have enemies that either are there to lock you down into position, or enemies that just bum rush you to maybe flush you out. You don't get the enemies that feel creative and fun to fight and like they're actually alive. And this is going to be my last bit on gameplay design here before we get to the story aspect. The shooting mechanics in Halo Campaign Evolved are a mix of classic Halo and Halo Infinite. And if you don't know what I mean, quick overview. Classic Halo games always used reticle magnetism to kind of help keep a reticle near an enemy, but you still had to manually use your right stick to aim. And there might have been a little bit of bullet magnetism here and there to help make everything kind of feel good like it did back in the day, but you weren't hitting shots unless you were actually aiming yourself. Halo Infinite has aim assist, and basically that keeps your reticle on the enemy. You did not have to move your right thumbstick pretty much at all, and your reticle just stuck onto an enemy and was shooting. And yeah, not very skillful, not very fun. And so to circle back, the reason I say it feels like a combination of the two, there's definitely aim assist here. There is not reticle magnetism, but the aim assist is a little bit lower, but it's still pretty strong. And from the classic Halos, they took the aspect of bullet magnetism and like cranked it up to 11. Bullets will go straight to an enemy's body so easily, even if your reticle is off. It's disgusting. Like, it is so bad that if I am trying to shoot at a jackal that's holding their shield, instead of the bullet from my pistol or any other weapon that has a scope, like sometimes even the sniper rifle, instead of my shot hitting their hand, causing them to flinch and move that shield, it gets pulled and yanked into the body. And I end up hitting the shield and wasting ammo instead. And this happens with the assault rifle too, the SMG, other plasma weapons in the sandbox like the pistol and the rifle. And you know what, even the Spiker on the prequel missions, and the battle rifle, and the needle rifle as well. It is a terrible form of aiming, and it is not fun or rewarding. Because while there is a little bit of agency of me moving my reticle, once I pretty much get it onto an enemy, the magnetism just kicks in and takes over. And that bit of aim assist there, that helps keep the reticle on so much that the game is just on easy mode. Like, literally. The default assault rifle just does not miss. It shoots in a straight line, and if you have enemies lined up, it's just gonna go one to the next. Same thing with the SMG. When you're in close range, it just kicks in, can't miss. Basically, it's impossible to miss in this game, unless you literally take your reticle and aim at the dirt. And sometimes, like in Halo Infinite, I found if I use my right stick a little bit too much, it actually hurts me, and I end up missing more shots. So sometimes you just gotta let that aim assist, after it kicks in, let it do the work. And one of the things that go along with the weapon design, projectiles are a lot faster because of sprint being in the game. Even though the enemies aren't sprinting around, and you are, for whatever reason, everything is just instantaneous for shots, pretty much, like very fast projectiles. May as well be hit scan, especially with the assault rifle and even the SMG. And something I didn't like with the design of the guns that I forgot to mention earlier, all of the human weapons have vapor trails. I don't know why they have vapor trails outside of the sniper rifle. It just does not make sense. They should be, if anything, tracer rounds, like we had with Halo CE back in the day. And it just seems silly and like a huge oversight. Like, someone was there like, oh man, this would be so cool, wouldn't it? Like, there's some fan fiction shit, dude. And speaking of fan fiction, that's going to segue into the last bit here, talking about the story. It's the same story we all know and love from Halo Combat Evolved, for the most part. They redid all the dialogue and added some new things. And it sounds very much, and feels very much, like a theatrical release or like a play. The voice acting is subpar. It does not match up with the original game. All of your big actors with the big roles like Cortana, Chief, 343, do not sound like themselves from the original. They sound like they're trying too hard or not hard enough. Especially the voice actor for Sergeant Johnson did not do a very good job. And maybe that's the people that gave him the direction for what they're looking for. But he doesn't sound like Johnson. He seems like a parody of Sergeant Johnson. A lot of the lines are delivered in a way that it seems like it's supposed to be funny or hysterical, like a Marvel comedic moment. And it just comes off very cringe. I don't think the people that wrote this or did the directing for him, for what they're looking for, really understand Johnson. Because the way Johnson talks is very much like a drill sergeant and a hardcore badass Marine, like from Colonial Marines, when they were all getting suited up and geared up. It's kind of like a bunch of theater kids got together and were the ones that had control over dialogue and controlling how lines were given. And when it comes to the prequel missions, this is where the worst offenses are. It literally is a piece of fan fiction. It is not canon by any means in my book. You have just Sergeant Johnson being really goofy, like a moment where he just sits in the dropship and lets Chief do all the work listening to rock and roll, and then comes out like some character in a fucking parody. It felt more like a Red vs. Blue skit. Like it was a parody of Halo. And then you have the one segment that I'll play here in a second, the Prophet that talks, and they have this whole thing where they go over all the different species of the Covenant, and it is so fucking cringe. It's like, again, theater fucking kids wrote this shit. And then we have the woke ass shit with the girl boss ODST. And she is just annoying. She's not a fun or cool character. The rivalry with Spartans and ODSTs, that did not come across to me. That just came off as some woke shit where this girl boss has to go in and she kind of takes over like she's the ultimate badass. The Chief is below her because he's a Spartan. And the whole line delivery of Spartans aren't the only badasses in the UNSC, very fucking cringe. And her whole girl boss crew. And if you don't think that it's a whole girl boss crew, the majority of the Marines at the end are all female. And that's not just some artistic purpose, that's literally them trying to put women in spots just because they're women. And then, you know, this just adds on top of that the woke shit with Cortana with the face of a man, with them trying to do some trans shit. If this is what we are in for in the future with other stories, there is no hope for Halo.
Here you can observe the true beauty of the Covenant. Our collective strength, a reflection of each member's devotion. The tenacity of the Ungoi. the cleverness of
But he's
the
giving them
Keeper,
hand signals and
the
shit.
Sangheili, long our partner since the Writ of Union, the burning edge of the Covenant's blade. And the Jiralhane. What they lack in mind, they make up.
And so to kind of give my conclusion on my thoughts on this game, it's an okay game at best. I personally would not suggest going out of your way to buy this game unless it really goes on sale. I happen to get the collector's edition. I'm a big Halo fan. There's definitely a part of me that is kind of regretting that right now. A little bit of buyer's remorse is kind of kicking in right at this very moment in time as of recording. For something that is supposed to mark a 25th anniversary, this was a very piss poor execution. My opinion, wait for the game to go on sale if you really want to play it. Otherwise, you could skip it. You're not missing out on anything. Obviously, there's no multiplayer. It's just a campaign. So definitely wait for the game to go on sale. Don't let your friends talk you into buying something because maybe they love it and they just ignore all this other shit and they'll just eat up whatever slop is given to them. Wait, save the money, be happy and glad that you did, because it's not a game that's going to give you a lot of replayability. I'm probably going to go through, do some of the achievements, kind of make it worth the money I spent on the game, get some time out of it, but after doing some achievements, I'm probably not going to touch the game again. It's probably going to be uninstalled. And if you want to get it because it looks nice, it looks like any other Unreal Engine game. In fact, there's a lot of aspects that look like Doom that was built on Unreal Engine as well. So, you're not missing anything. So, these are just my thoughts. Feel free to let me know what you think down below, especially if you've had a chance to play the game yourself. How do you feel about it? I'll be keeping an eye on the comment section and interacting with you guys. And if you made it this far, I very much do appreciate it. So feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed this content, and click that notification bell. That way you get notified anytime I upload more content like this, or whenever I go live throughout the week. I stream Monday, Thursday, and Friday evenings. A few different games in the rotation right now: Halo, Star Wars, Gears of War. Typically always a good fun time. Again, I really appreciate everyone stopping by here and listening to what I had to say. Catch you guys on the next one.